Hey guys, how are you? What's up,
All
Joe?
right.
What's going on, guys?
You guys ready for today's show?
Let's get it going.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. We're going to go now. All right, guys. So, go ahead, Joe.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for stopping by House of the Unusual podcast. Tonight we got a special guest on tonight. He is magician Chuck Caputo. Chuck, welcome to the audio visual podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's great being here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And since we got you going now, give everyone a little a rundown about yourself. Who you are, what you do for a living, and maybe some of your interests. Since a lot of us, we've every episode we talk about our love for novelties and comics and movies. So give us a little insight into what's going on with you.
Sure, I'd be glad to. I think we're pretty much in the same category, except mine is more into magic. I'm a professional magician from Pittsburgh. It's about 17 degrees outside, so it's very cold here. But what I do is I've been doing magic for about 37 years professionally as a full-time job. So it's been a lot of traveling. I travel throughout the whole United States and Canada. So, with different types of stage shows, close-up shows, and so forth. And, plus I collect magic, a lot of antique magic props. I believe at one time Eddie owned a magic shop. I have a lot of Thayer, Owen, Abbott's, Supreme. The main thing I collect, which is what I'm known for, is Anverti. He was a Dutch magician, and he had a lot of electronic gadgets, really cool magic tricks, spirit bells, card rises, things that move, things that float. And he also built plastic effects, bottles, trays, and so forth. Really cool stuff. If you search Anverti online, you can see he'll pop up, and you'll see a lot of my videos because I actually demonstrate quite a few of the effects. But throughout the years, I've also built a lot of magic that I've sold worldwide. And I actually built a lot of electronic stuff too. Like mechanical type of gadgets and things of that nature. But I know you guys are into novelties and comics, which when I was a kid, man, I'll tell you what, I was probably the biggest sucker. I mean, P.T. Barnum said there's a sucker born every minute, right? Yeah. So I bought it. I wish I would have saved all that stuff. It's amazing how valuable. It's amazing. Right. But but that stuff always fascinated me, and I like comics too.
Oh, good. We've talked a lot on this podcast. We've had a few people on that either are magicians or deal with magic stuff, especially one guy who deals a lot with Harry Houdini, memorabilia and all that. So we've talked a lot about magic, and I know Eddie's been real big into magic. My only thing is I liked watching it when I was younger. I'm a product of the 80s, so I grew up watching some of those guys that were on TV, and that was my only real insight into magic. And now I still like watching different stuff. And I recently got for Christmas, my wife got me a vintage Gilbert Misto Magic playset from 1938.
Cool, nice.
And I thought it was really cool. I really liked the front cover. It was because I'm real big into horror and all that, so I like the devils dancing around the pot, the cauldron on the front, and then there was the inside was really cool. So I really might have to start getting into collecting some vintage kits, because as me and Eddie were talking before, and he got me really looking into some of the kits. They're just the artwork and just everything that's in them was really cool, and it's got me a little bit more into magic. But we'll let Eddie take it from here, because he's the one. He had the magic shop, and he was real big in it himself, a lot more than me.
Well, let me tell you a story. Yeah, I did have a magic shop in 1989, just before I got in contact with Lou Weiss, the original owner of the Fun Factory, and I closed down the magic shop to join forces with him and do a mail order company again. And as I said before, Chuck, the first ad that ever ran in comic book was Johnson Smith in 1939 with Superman, the Action Comics #1. And the final ad that ever ran, and this you can look it up on Google, you can do the research, was 1993, and that was the Fun Factory, which was me and Lou Weiss. We ran that in 1983. So I do have the title of holding the last ad for novelties, for jokes and tricks on comic books, and it ran in DC Comics, the January issue, which went on sale in December of '93. Now, the other thing that was interesting about it is, the magic shop was fascinating and stuff, and I used to do magic at a young age. Then later on, I stopped. When I had the magic shop, I had a magician friend of mine who I would give parties to, and I would book parties for him, and that's how I dealt with magic. But the fact that you grow up watching comic books, you grow up ordering jokes and novelties, magic always has a field in that. Now, but here I have some exciting news of what happened today. Well, I was over in earlier this morning. I looked at my Dr. Saab is one of the persons that have come over to our website, and he's been there talking, and Todd has been talking back and forth with him for some time now. I think Dr. Saab has been a customer of mine for quite so many years. Never really talked to him directly, but as of about 2 days ago, I sent him some stuff he wanted, and I sent him the Abracadabra Magic Shop robot plans. Those were the plans that, and I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. It was sold by the House of 1,000 Mysteries, Chuck. The plans for $1, and the way the Abracadabra Magic Shop did it, it looked like it were a drawing of a Frankenstein monster. Said, "Build your own monster." So when I was a kid, I made the mistake of ordering those. Even those are available everywhere under the sun to this day. I didn't order the ones that I've been looking for 38 years now. And so anyway, I told Dr. Saab, I sent him the plans, and he's like, "Hey, I should build them." And I say, "Hey, if you build it, you live in Jersey, I'll go pick them up." And I didn't know he took it serious. So he's like, "Oh, well, there's no problem. Do you want a full size or a miniature?" So I got really excited. And I'm like, "Hey, if you can do a full size, I'm all for that." So we went back and forth, and he made, this is really interesting. He made a CAD drawing of just the head, and he got me going because I sent him the photos of the robot from the ad, the original one that I'm looking for the plans and I can't find. And through the CAD drawing, I know this guy is like a genius. He's an engineer of some sort, so he's going to put it together. It's going to take, he says, it's going to be more than 6 to 8 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks. And I said, I'll wait 8 to 12 weeks. It's fine, So anyway, that's the excitement I have today because this morning we went back, and if you go to the website and you go under the forum, it'll be under, I think, House of the Unusual Delivery. That's the topic, and you could see what I discussed with him. Now, Chuck here, Joe, about, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, he reaches out to me. He says, "Hey, Eddie, you're selling the Gray Leon Miniature Haunted House, the book," which is a book that's been around. I've been selling for years, but it's been sold by many magic companies, But he says, "I actually had one. I built it, and I was performing." So he took the performance, which, believe it or not, Chuck, I wanted to have a clip on here, but I really couldn't because of the way it was recorded. It was an MP3 format or MP4. And for some reason, StreamYard wouldn't let me play it. There is a way, but I wasn't ready for it today. So I'm going to leave it as that, but you did perform. And then I asked him, "Joe, would you sell me the house?" And this guy sold me. And also, I've never seen one in live. I've never seen one on eBay. I've just never seen one. It's a miniature form. And I think it would fit right into my collection. So
what is the haunted house, Chuck? Can you give us a little insight on?
Go ahead, Chuck. Give us
what is it? Is it a magic trick or is it something else?
Okay, Joe. What I tend to do is I lean towards spooky magic. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Now for kids' birthdays and schools, you can't do that, obviously. But for Halloween parties and so forth,
you can't scare the hell out of them when they're 3 years in kindergarten.
And exactly like Eddie said, there's a manuscript that was put out by Magic Incorporated for probably over 40 years now. And I bought that manuscript about 25 years ago, and I actually was fortunate enough to buy one of the Leon haunted houses, and I traded it. It was big. It was bigger than I thought. So I figure, well, I'm going to build a smaller one. So what I did was I actually constructed a tabletop version where you can carry it under your arm if you had to, because if it's too big for me, it makes it very difficult, especially with the time constraints of setting a show up. So I actually built this thing. Some of it came from a dollhouse. Other parts, what I had to do is build the whole front of the frame. What this is, Joe, is a dollhouse that's more or less, it's sitting on a table. And so I go in and I tell a story about that there was a haunted house when I was a kid. It was in my neighborhood. And so I just stand next to the house and I ring the doorbell, and it goes bing bong. And the way I have it rigged, the door slowly opens and there's a Grim Reaper standing there with his eyes flashing green. Okay. Cool. And then up in the upper right hand corner, there's a shuttered window, and both of the shutters slowly open and there's a ghost standing there. Okay, so then it'll close and the door will close. I snap off the front, and now you're looking in the house. So things you put in a house, like there's a slate, like an old chalk slate, it's blank, and I lay it in the house. I put a piece of chalk next to it, and I stand completely away from it, and that little chalkboard will float and rise. I ask, are the spirits with me? And written on the chalk slate, it says yes, real bold. Okay, cool. So then I pull that out. And then I have a scarf that I put inside of a bottle. I put the lid on it. I stand back, it pops up out of the bottle, and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of things, and it's all based on the original directions, but I put my own twist to it.
Nice.
Okay.
Really cool.
Yeah. So I actually used that at school shows over 20 years ago, and then for some reason I went to a different avenue, and I packed it away. And I noticed on like around Halloween time, there was a forum that I belonged to, and people were talking about spirit cabinets. So I told them that I have a fabrication of the Great Leon one, and so I videotaped it to my wife, and I put that on there, and they really seemed to get a kick out of it. But this is a tabletop one. Okay, now there's real big spirit cabinets as well, but this is a tabletop one. I think the tabletop version started in 1939 by Stuart James. He built a Cephalalgia cabinet, and so it's kind of strange sounding name, but if you Google it, if you search Stuart James, his version was a little different. There was a curtain that you slid over when things happen. See, the thing I like about the Great Leon house is it's in the open. Once you snap the front panel off, you actually see the chalkboard floating, the scarf popping out of the bottle. Stuart James just slid the curtain across and things would happen. Okay, like things would move and so forth. So I think the Leon is a little bit more visual. That's what caught my eye. It's a pretty complex thing. I mean, there's a lot of mechanics, and I added a lot to it. So I happened to notice that Eddie was selling on eBay the Great Leon manuscripts. So I dropped him a note. I said, listen, I built one of these actually, and I sent him the video, and that's pretty much how we met.
Joe, I don't know if I told you. Well, tonight we were going to have Dave Harborsat here with you. Unfortunately, he had some stuff and he wasn't able to make it. But he definitely would like to be in next week or something. He wants to see if he can connect with you and stuff. But what I was going to say is, with the Great Leon Miniature Haunted House a few years ago, I would say probably in 2005, I got a call, or maybe I could be wrong. It could be more like 2010. I got an email from a guy who said he was the grandson of the Great Leon. And he goes, oh, you're selling my grandfather's manuscript. He says, I remember him doing that trick all the time. So he actually bought one of them.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm like the grandson.
Now, Chuck, you mentioned earlier that you get into building a lot of your stuff for your magic shows and all that, and a lot of it's mechanical. Now, is that because I don't know too much about how the magic industry works, but is that normal for a magician to build his own tricks, or do they usually have somebody that builds them for you that works with the magician on putting the magic trick together?
Well, I think for the most part, Joe, that most magicians do not build their own effects. It's just that what, when I was buying things years ago, when I got it in the mail and I paid an exorbitant amount of money and I examined it, I said I could build this. And I'm good with woods and plastics, and electronics was always one of my hobbies.
Okay.
And so that worked out perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny, Chuck. I was now that you mentioned electronics, I was talking. I don't know Dr. Saab, actually, Dr. Saab, what his field is, but I know that the robot that I wanted has like a sling across it, like Gort, and it has a red dot that goes side to side.
Nice.
And I was saying, I'll probably have Chuck build that part for me, the eye size.
That's cool. I think I know what you're saying. Like the light, there's a light that travels from side to side.
Right. You know who had it? If you remember Buck Rogers in the 25th century.
Yep.
The one from the 1980s or the 70s, the show.
Right.
That had the little robot had the thing went like that. Ding, ding, same thing, same principle.
Yeah. I think that's called a Larson scanner, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That's
what it is.
Yeah.
Larson scanner.
Cool. Yeah.
But you see, poor Joe here, he's afraid of magic. He only likes spooky movies and stuff. But magic,
I just like to disappear. That's it.
Hey, I like spooky movies too. Joe, one of my old time favorites, I still watch it, which I told Eddie when we were talking on the phone a few days ago. Dr. Phibes. I've been a big fan of.
I love them.
You know what? There was 2 Dr. Phibes movies, but they're both good. But the first one, it's just really cool. It brings back memories. I think I'm a little bit older than you, Joe. I think I'm a little bit older than you. But when I was a kid, I saw that when it was current.
No, Joe's the oldest one here, Chuck. Joe's the oldest.
Right.
He's 62.
Yeah, you wish. No.
But
the Dr. Phibes show movies, the 2 of them with Vincent Price are just they're excellent. I go back even further. I like a lot of the silent horror movies.
Absolutely.
And then, the stuff from the 30s, especially stuff that's that's pre-code, because you don't get those watered down scripts where they're trying to adhere to the strict ridiculous codes that came out. The same thing happened with comic books into the 50s and the 60s when they got coded as well. You used to have EC pumping out these great stories with great artwork, and then everything gets watered down. But I like a lot of that pre-code stuff. But even movies from 50s and 60s and a little bit into the early 70s are cool as well. But like a horror aspect to magic, I think that would be something really cool to look into. I didn't know there was anybody really doing anything like that. Now, are you the only one that does that, or is that a big genre, I guess, in the magic industry?
It's a big genre. It's a lot of people into spooky magic. In fact, that's what made the spook shows in the 1940s and 50s so famous.
Exactly.
But even today, spooky magic is done by a lot of magicians, Joe.
A lot of magicians.
Now does that come because now I just a little bit that I've looked into magic, and I've talked to Eddie about this, and Dave Harvestad, who does a lot with the Houdini memorabilia and a lot of old magic memorabilia. I really like those posters where you see like the ghosts, the skeletons, the seance.
Those are beautiful.
Stuff like that. So was that actually like the start of spooky magic, or was that where spooky magic came from?
Yeah, I tell you what, here, as far as I can tell, here in the United States, I think spiritualism started right here in about 1850. It was with the Fox sisters from New York. Okay, and there was 3 sisters, and they claimed they had psychic ability. All right, and then it turned out that they were pretty much a fraud. What they were able to do, believe it or not, was snap their toes and their ankles to make it sound like ghost rappings.
You know what? I read something about that where they were doing that, where they had to practice that for so long, and their bones actually were deformed, so that they practicing so much that they were able to actually do those toe tappings.
Oh yeah, and they fooled a lot of people. And they fooled a lot of people, but then one of the relatives under sworn affidavit, I can't remember the name slips me right now, but one of the relatives signed under sworn affidavit that they snapped their toes and their ankles and so forth. So that's pretty much how you do it. But that started the whole spiritualist movement. It was right here in the United States. Okay. Then after that, a lot of the vaudeville magicians, they came out with spirit cabinets and so forth. So that's pretty much how it happened.
So it goes back pretty far then. It's nothing new. It has its roots back in the 1800s.
That goes back to the 1800s. In fact, if you see Robert Houdin, a lot of his posters and Blackstone always have ghosts and images coming out of them. Magic has always been associated with spooky, horror, but like Chuck says, what Chuck likes is what I like about magic. I've always looked for the haunted magic and stuff. Dave Harborsat, even though Dave was a practicing magician at one time, all he really does now is more like auction houses and stuff, because he owns an auction house called Harborsat and Ewing, and what he does there is, he sells those $100,000 posters that people put, for sale through his auction house. And in fact, David Copperfield, I think, was one of his biggest customers. The thing is, though, like with spooky magic, which I know you would love, Joe, is if you go on eBay or Amazon and you
I
put
don't
in,
even want to look because I want to start buying stuff.
wrapping. No, there's a finger like this. Let me see if I can get in the camera. Finger like this, and there's a piece of wood. And when you ask it a question, it wraps by itself.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
$200. Yeah, what it is, that's like for people to say prediction, like magic. The finger wraps and it looks like nothing. It really has like some type of visible control line or motor, but they sell that. That's big. I mean,
I'm wondering if spooky magic's going to really become, something that's big, because
it's always been big.
Maybe about, more, I guess more mainstream, because now about a year and a half ago or so, DC Comics came out with a subtitle line of their Justice League series called Justice League Dark, and it dealt with the magicians from the DC world, and it was a very dark themed series, and it played off of a small storyline that started in Wonder Woman, which was called The Witching Hour, that dealt with like dark magic, spooky magic. But the Justice League Dark dealt with a lot of like spooky magic subjects and all that, and it's even being made into a show on HBO. So I'm wondering if maybe spooky magic can become a lot more mainstream, because that's what the comic books revolved around, and now that's what the show's going to revolve around. These magicians, fighting supernatural forces and doing a lot of spooky stuff. So hopefully that'll help you out, Chuck, and make a boom in your industry, because
that would be cool. Yeah,
might get people a lot more involved in that, because everything, because we even know 10 years ago, I was just talking with somebody about this last night, is that when Marvel Cinematic Universe started, comic books weren't really they were for the people that were weird or nerds and all that. They weren't too mainstream, and some of the characters weren't big. But once that first Iron Man movie hit, now everybody wanted comic books, and it became $1 billion industry. So hopefully that happens with magic, because I don't think magic is on the same level right now as these $1 billion industries, but hopefully maybe that will start propelling it, because everything goes around in cycles.
Exactly.
So hopefully that'll start making it bigger, and you'll start getting more people involved in it. You'll start seeing more shows on TV, maybe more movies about it, more live shows. So
Joe,
do you think something like that is possible? Or
here's what let me put my input on this. Magic and horror and scary magic has always had its place among people. It's never been popularized. Like, for example, you never heard of it, but there's actual theaters today that are still doing spook shows, throughout the country in different parts, because I've seen them. The problem is that some people don't hear it unless you like magic. But one thing about magic, no matter where you go. Yeah, but no matter where you go somewhere and you do a magic trick and somebody says, "Oh, I like that. I like that." That's why magic does so well. In fact, if you look right now on eBay, there's about at least 130 different magic shops. They're still there. The old-fashioned magic shop that doesn't close, that's there forever, they're far and few in between. A lot of them have gone out of business, not because people don't buy magic, but people are now buying it online. And competing.
What's kind of sad, and we've touched on this before, Eddie, because I'm in Youngstown, and I've never heard of a magic shop in Youngstown that I know of or remember. You would either have to go out to Pittsburgh or to Cleveland. Pittsburgh's an hour from here, Cleveland hour and a half, to find any magic. And the only real magic that I've ever been introduced to through my lifetime was either on TV. You had what was the guys with the tiger, Siegfried and Roy, or you had
Roy,
Keller, or who was the other popular one during
the guy from Radio City Music Hall, the long hair guy. What was his name, Chuck?
Yeah,
Chris Angel.
No, back in the 80s, going back further.
Doug Henning.
Doug Henning, Doug Henning until he died. He was.
Yeah. Oh, he was fantastic.
So I was only introduced to stuff like that, or if it was live, hey, look, I could put a pin through a balloon, or make do something, very childish. I was never introduced to, seeing, very good magic or spook magic. So I'm kind of excited to, start learning about this now.
You did one right now. You froze in time and you went, and then
I'm already on my road to it.
Hey, that was pretty spooky. But I tell you what, Eddie brought up a good point. Most brick and mortar stores, the majority of them are closing. The last shop in Pittsburgh just closed a couple of years ago. And there was one in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. He was a very good friend of mine. He closed up. So most are online, because when you have a brick and mortar store, I mean, you have to pay your bills. Yeah. And so that makes it difficult. And you brought up a point, Joe, too, that was very interesting. Magic does go in cycles. You're exactly right. About 20 years ago, there was World's Greatest Magic. It was on every year. Everybody used to look forward to watching it. And Magic shot through the roof. I mean, it was really unbelievable. So that helped a lot. It really did.
Just like anything. I mean, we see, records, starting to make a comeback. Even VHS is starting to make a comeback among some collectors. Sports cards. So, I'm hoping Magic starts making a comeback, and it would be nice to see some, actual brick and mortar stores where as much as we all love online and the deals and all that, there's nothing that beats walking into the store and just being amongst all the stuff, especially like I'm a big comic book guy, and I love going into the stores and smelling the paper and looking at the books. So it'd be nice to go into a magic shop like that, but I don't know any that are near me.
Let me tell you something. In St. Augustine, Florida, there's a magic shop there that's been there about 40 years. It's called Theater Magic, and I'm sure Chuck knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And he's been getting pretty popular. The kid that works for him in Theater Magic impressed me like crazy. And the other thing, Tannen's Magic Shop, PC, and Chuck knows that Tannen's Magic Shop, it's like the second oldest in the country, because Marquita Magic, Flosser Horn Magic Shop was the one that was older. But even though they're still in business, but Flosser Horn is all online now. He closed his shop, but Tannen's, what Tannen had made really popular in magic was the mystery box. They had a magic mystery box that they sell for $25.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. Now, the Magic Mystery Box, what made it really famous, it made a debut in Wire magazine. J.J. Abrams, the producer, said that when he was a kid, he walked into the shop, he got the magic box, and then he kept it, never opened it, because then it wouldn't be a mystery anymore. And it was kind of funny, though, because some guy was online the other day, and I'm watching him for 20 minutes, a magician, and I'm saying, he's about to open the box, and you know what he does? He takes the box out of a box, and then he does like J.J. Abrams says, at the end, you know what? It's better to keep it a mystery. If I open it, then it's not going to be a mystery no more. And I'm like, what? I waited 20 minutes, and now you're not going to open it, So he got me there. But the point is, anyway, I turned around and I ordered two for myself.
Chuck, I have a question. Okay, Eddie sent me this a couple months, maybe a little bit longer than a couple months ago or so, and I've never heard of it. And I read a little bit of the pamphlet, and I thought it was very interesting. But let me see if I could get it up here on screen. Bat Magic by Ricky Dunn. Have you ever heard of that?
I know who Ricky Dunn is, but I've never heard of Bat Magic. No.
It's pretty cool if you get a chance, or if Eddie could send you one. It's really, I don't know. It's very weird. Everything's kind of bat related. There's even like some Batman stuff in it. But Ricky Dunn, who was he? Was he a popular magician, or
he was a pickpocket, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
He was. He was.
What kind of stuff are you peddling, Eddie?
You know what? I'm just about positive. If I remember right, his stage act, I think it's him. He would call people up. It was hilarious. I mean, he'd have your watch, he'd have your necktie if you're a guy. I mean, it was unbelievable. I believe that was Ricky Dunn, if I'm not mistaken. He was a professional pickpocket, but he did a nice magic type of show with that. I think he's gone. I think he passed away. If I'm thinking of the right person, I mean, I don't want to.
Yeah, he did. But you know what's funny though? You reminded me there was a magician. I forgot his name. A professional magician that he passed. Let's put it this way: he got married to this woman that worked with me in the hospital a couple of years ago, and he passed away. And then the woman, I think his children called the ex-wife and said, if you want his magic stuff, you better get it because we're going to dump it all. And she says, it's sad it's going to be lost. And I go, whoa, what do you mean lost? 1 second. I have a van. You have a car. We can go up there and fill it up. And that we did. I must have picked up about 472 magic books, DVDs. A collection of Genie magazine from the 1930s and 40s.
Oh, some great stuff.
I got over 700 issues. But the point is that I forgot his name. I'm trying to remember because he signed Carliti. I forgot the name. Because everybody knows the amazing Randy. Randy was from Paterson, New Jersey. Paterson, correct?
Yeah.
And he followed doing Houdini stuff, like escaping from things. And one thing about, like, again, Joe, if you look at any magic stuff, very few magic doesn't deal with some type of horror. Like, for example,
absolutely. The arm chopper, head choppers.
Coney Island. Coney Island had those machines, the fortune-telling machines. Why would they? I mean, everything behind magic and carnivals has horror in it.
Yeah.
You just haven't been looking, Joe, but I'm telling you, everything has horror. And I've been attracted to it because of that.
It's fantastic.
That's why I kind of like a lot of the vintage stuff. I mean, especially because I'm a big art guy too, so I like the the artwork, especially with the ghosts, the skulls,
gorgeous.
The demons, and all that. It's just some of it's beautiful. And I mean, you start looking at original stuff. I mean, you're talking in the tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands for original stuff. But just to look at it, and I had about a year or two ago, I got a book from Barnes and Nobles, and it was on kind of like the history of magic. And I don't think I even read anything of it because I just kept going through the book maybe 7 or 8 times, just looking at the pictures and just studying the pictures. And, it just everything, all that stuff just captivated me. And it almost, now we could look at it and say, it's magic. There's a process to doing the magic, to the illusion. Right. But I could imagine myself being, a 12-year-old kid back in the 20s or 30s and seeing this stuff done on stage. And you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's dealing with, the paranormal or demons or these spirits or watching a medium on stage. And you would actually, believe it. And then you would see these posters and, in the, maybe leading into the theater with the, the ghosts or, the skulls, and you would think, man, I'm getting into something that's very, spooky or otherworldly. So I kind of like to, transition myself back to maybe that period and try to put myself into the mind of like a little kid walking into like these, dark theaters, maybe, dimly lit or just what, candles, and seeing these, cool magic tricks or these cool mediums and just,
Let me ask you a question, Joe. Let me ask this question. I just want to say, because Chuck, you would know this better than me. I believe that what happened, and here's what Joe will be excited about. I think the magic was always horror and dark. What happened is when Walt Disney first produced the Haunted Mansion, I could be wrong on this, he said he wanted to create a haunted house that was haunted, but not enough to scare the kids. So he wanted to have a mild haunted house. Somebody, because I heard the story, somebody that was building it with him said, no, that's crazy. It was like the opposite. So they kind of made the Haunted Mansion because Walt Disney died before it was officially finished open. So it became like, a little scary, but not so scary type of theme like that.
Sure.
I think what they did is they started putting in the late 60s, they started putting on magic because so many kids was watching it. they started making magic a little more mild and less scary. And that's where you got the parties for kids and stuff like that.
Right.
Before, you didn't do parties for kids when you were a magician in the 40s and 50s. You performed in the theater. You
You're
performed a lot. Am I okay in saying that, Chuck? I mean, you
absolutely.
better than me. But
absolutely. There's a few guys that I knew over 35 years ago. They were older back then, and they were good friends of mine. I became good friends with them. They were local Pittsburgh magicians who performed in clubs. Tony Polito just passed away about 2 years ago. He's a very good friend of mine. He was about 94 when he died, but he played all the club circuits exactly like you're saying, Eddie, back in the 50s, back in the early 60s. You know what? I was fortunate enough to know Del Rey. Some of the viewers, which I'm sure probably know who this is, he was a legendary magician here in Pittsburgh. He was probably, in my opinion, overall, the best magician that I think I ever saw. He was a pioneer with micro electronic magic. That's who got me into this, actually. I was fortunate enough to do a show with him in 1987 on the same stage, and I was just like blown away what he did. And at that time, I was in college. I got a degree in business, and I ended up doing this stuff. But it's a lot more fun. But I was friends with Del Rey for over 30 years, and he was a fantastic magician. And one more thing that Eddie brought a point up about the vintage magic. Yeah, that's very important. You know what I recommend to younger kids is to read. You know what, the old time books, the Tarbell books.
Right. Tarbell, yeah.
Yeah, the old Tarbell ones, the Professor Hoffman books, the Greater Magic. Some of the principles in there are so old that they're new. I mean, like, I actually use these principles in a lot of these things that I make, and like the younger people are going, "Whoa, where'd you get that?" Well, it's from a book that's 100 years old. So you have to read. See, that's the thing about it.
Chuck, that's funny you brought that up, because my next question to you was going to be is, for these, young kids or even young adults that want to get into magic, there's so much out there now, and so many different places for them to look, and they're probably overwhelmed or could be overwhelmed. What would be your advice for people just starting off with magic, no matter what age they are?
Yeah. What I'd recommend, Joe, would be first of all, if you have a local club in your area, like Pittsburgh has a ring, which is a magic club. That's for the IBM, which is the International Brotherhood, the International Brotherhood of Magicians, and there's the SAM, the Society of American Magicians. I'd recommend that they find a local club. That way they can fellowship with other magicians. Okay. And then the other thing I recommend, which is what Eddie was saying, if you can patronize the brick and mortar stores, like he said, Tannen's, there's a wonderful place that's been around for over 100 years, around 100 years, in Michigan, Abbott's, Colon, Michigan. My wife and I went to their get together 2 summers ago. It was fantastic. It was a whole week of magic. I mean, it was unbelievable. And they're nice people, so I would look up Abbott's Magic, Tannen's Magic, Hocus Pocus down in California. That's a fantastic place. So stick with the brick and mortar places, talk to other magicians, learn some moves. You know what? I actually specialize in sleight of hand too. I don't want you guys just to think I'm a button pusher, because I'm not.
No.
I actually specialize with this complex sleight of hand.
There's also a magic shop in California. My brother went to it. I've never been to it, but it's Houdini Magic Shop.
Absolutely.
It's very big. You know what? To be honest with you, Joe, David was making fun of me because he's like, "What are you going on a shopping spree for magic now?" Because I've been buying anything that's spooky. I usually look up haunted magic. And you get the linking ring. One of my favorites is the hilarious haunted hanky from Loftus Novelties, because the old one has the most beautiful artwork in that envelope you could see. You ever seen that, Joe?
No.
Oh, okay. I gotta show it to you. The hilarious haunted. You know what I'm talking about, right, Joe? Chuck. Now, Chuck, this is the thing that's funny too about why a lot of the stores, I think, close. When you make magic, or when you sell magic, you would sell a cheap old booklet stapled on the side as a plan. You sold it for $20, $30, and people would pay for it. For example, one of the best tricks, I think, in my opinion, is the appearing cane. And
Absolutely.
Still there, Eddie?
I think you froze, Eddie.
He's doing his own magic. Well, until Eddie comes back. But Chuck, I wanted to just touch on something that you had mentioned too about reading through those old books from the early 1900s. And I think that it just goes, across the board for anything that anybody's trying to get into, whether it's magic, whether it's drawing, it is read.
Absolutely.
Find what you can and read. I'm always, interested in different stuff, whether it's, I do some writing, I'm starting to get back into doing some, drawing, and the first thing I do is I read. I read as much as I can about a subject. Even when I'm, going to do an article for a movie, I find everything that I can for that movie, and I read and I read and I read. Even before sometimes I watch the movie, I want to do the reading. So if anybody's out there, find what you can and just absorb it all and read as much as you can.
I agree 100%. You know what I mean? I mean, we grew up, we actually read a lot, and it was big in my family, and that's how I learned my magic, Joe, which was very difficult because books, with scant drawings, you really can't figure it out too well. I think the younger kids growing up now, they're at an advantage because they have YouTube and so forth, where there's a lot of tutorials. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's very important. You have to know the subject. I mean, I probably have over 1,000 books on magic alone.
That's quite a library.
Yeah, I got quite a collection. It's actually out of control. That's why I'm trying to sell a few things here and there. But,
yeah, it's never out of control, man. It's just I've got tons of books myself, and I've got reference book on top of reference book for everything, and I always find myself going back to it. And even one of the things I'm because I'm starting to get back in. I used to do art a long time ago, so I'm just starting to get back into it. And I remember back in it had to be grade school, maybe in the mid 80s, there was this in the library at the school, there was this old art book on drawing like cartoons, and it was I remember being just the very basics, and I've been trying to find that for years now. Like I remember the cover. I don't remember the name of it, but I could recall the cover, a yellow cover with some cartoons. If I seen it, I would know it. But
oh yeah,
no matter how old some of these references are, because a lot of people think that they have to buy new books, but if you go back to the old stuff, the information is just as good, if not sometimes better. Like you said about the magic tricks, going back to the early 1900s and finding stuff, because people might have forgotten about that or haven't used that stuff in 50 years. So now you're bringing it, new.
Oh yeah. Hey, that's what's great about Eddie, because I mean, man, he's really into the Johnson Smith, the Honor House, the Gale House, which is stuff we grew up on in the comic books, and that brings back memories. It's amazing. It's really, I mean, I had a lot of that stuff. I have a couple things from my childhood from Johnson Smith. Someday I'm going to put together like a little showcase for it, and I'll show you guys the stuff I have. It's very minimal, but I mean, but that brings back memories. That's what's great. I like talking to, Eddie about all this stuff, because man, he's very knowledgeable, and he's bringing this stuff back. He's bringing it back. It's great.
Yeah, hopefully that like we talked about, everything comes around in circles. So hopefully that's the same with novelty and magic. But I want to touch on you mentioned at the beginning that you travel a lot doing your magic through the United States and Canada. What are some of your favorite places that you enjoy going to and performing, inside the States and outside?
Yeah, I tell you what, I was in a few lounges out in Las Vegas performing, and that's just a cool place. It's everything right now is pretty much shut down, but I mean it's just a neat place. I like to go to the conventions in recent years. I just started getting back into that because the kids are older now. We have two boys, Michael and Nick. Michael's 28, Nick is 25, and they moved out, so it's kind of nice they're on their own now. But yes, as my wife and I started to get back into the conventions, which is neat. I mean, because you talk to a lot of magicians and you socialize, and that's a neat thing. There's like a strong brotherhood there, Joe. You know what I mean? And but there's, what the main thing I always enjoyed doing, probably the most amazing things I've done in magic is at schools. I've always liked to perform at school shows. I don't know exactly why, but there's a feeling there that you get a good vibe from the kids. And I also use.
Are those still pretty big? Doing the schools?
Yeah. Prior to COVID, I had quite a few booked actually, and I'm doing a few online actually on Zoom. Which is there's like 150 kids watching, and you really can't see them. Once in a while, a face pops up.
Yeah.
But it's kind of neat. Schools are neat, and I use a safety program for a live school show where I have big posters and I teach the kids how to cross streets. Getting in and off the school bus, things of that nature. But
you're tricking them into learning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but schools are cool. I always like them the best. I don't know why. There's like a vibe that comes back to you. You know what? Because the kids are like sitting there, like they're in awe, which is pretty much what we were when we were kids. So that's neat. But schools are my favorite, out of any kind.
Oh, very good, very good. So we're gonna be wrapping it up here. So give everybody. Do you have a website out there? Are you in social media or anything like that?
Yeah. You know what? If the viewers would like to see some of my creations and actually me demonstrate some of the Inverti magic from Tony Inverti of Holland, go to YouTube, okay, and search. Go open the block and search Magician Chuck Caputo, okay, or you could search my wife, Sherry Caputo. She films a lot of it, so she has a YouTube channel also. That's Cheri. That's how my wife spells her name, Caputo, Caputo. Okay, and if you go to my website, that's like pretty much for clients. I mean, there's like really nothing new on there. But I mean, but you could Google my name. It'll take you to the website if you want to do that. But if you want to see me perform the haunted house, which is what Eddie was just talking about.
Hey, there he is. He's back and kind of sideways.
Listen, I don't know. I mean, my computer has just totally frozen. I'm hosting you guys. And
there you go. How you doing, Eddie?
Let me try to do this. Okay,
there you
better.
go.
We'll have all your Chuck. We'll have all your links and all that. In the description and everything as well.
Okay.
And
the only other thing I wanted to mention to the viewers out there, like if somebody's, if they're like getting into magic, particularly read a lot, like we said, and try to build stuff. I mean, you really don't know what you can do until you try. You know what? I started 30 years ago building electronic magic. I started with RC cars. And they work off of common frequencies, channel 27 and channel 49. And from there, I migrated to the key fobs where they're up in the 800 megahertz, So, I mean, you really don't know what you can do until you try. You know what I mean? So I would recommend to try and build what you can too, because it's very gratifying.
And that's the best thing too. And if there is people out there, listening or watching that have an interest in magic or, want to get a hold of someone, get a hold of, head over to houseoftheunusual.com in the forum there, put something in the forum there. It's a good place to, get in touch with people. We do have a few members that are, magicians, whether they're amateur or professional, but, building your community on there. And you could get, this guy right here, he's always around, very knowledgeable to answer questions. And
look, I want you to see everything just real quick before we close. The computer right there is still frozen. I have not been able to unfreeze it. I don't know what happened. And you guys were still on.
We were on.
I used my magic and I froze it.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. It worked out good. It worked out good. Joe and I were still talking, so it worked out great. Hey, but thanks for having me, guys. Nice meeting you, Joe. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie, for having me.
We still got 10 minutes on the cast here, don't we?
Yeah, we got a few minutes here, so we're just closing it up real quick and getting some final thoughts. I wanted Chuck to at least, in case we froze up again, to get out his contact information, anybody to get a hold of him, and so that's where we're at now. Now we got John back. I don't know why it says John underneath his
John. Oh my gosh!
I got kind of confused when I was looking. I know it's
when that popped up, I'm thinking like, did somebody else like pop into our podcast here? Someone named John, and they seen Eddie sideways.
There you go. No.
I wanted to get Chuck's information out there just in case something happened or we had more technical.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not. You know what? I'm not a hard guy to find. Just Google magician Chuck Caputo. My name, my address will pop up. It'll take you right to YouTube, so you can see a lot of my videos. I make short videos. I only make about 4 minutes, 5 minutes. I can't stand real long videos, so I keep them short. and it's things that I collect. I have a lot of my collection items, things that I've built, and so forth. Watch the videos. Give me a thumbs up if you feel so inclined to do. And I'd recommend for you, Joe, to check out the haunted house. Check out
I'm
Chuck
definitely
Caputo.
gonna have to check that out. I'll probably check it out tonight because that sounds something really cool. And
Actually, we're gonna put a link on it if I can manage to to play around here, because I really don't know what the heck happened.
Starting to get motion sickness. All he's moving around.
No. This is. I mean, I'm doing this on the iPad. I don't even know why the iPad is. It's got me crooked.
I'm surprised you got connected. I'm surprised you got connected back in.
Now I'm back.
Hey, when you do stuff live, that's what happens. I mean, what are you gonna do?
See?
Yeah, there's always some type of technical difficulties, but I guess that's the gem of doing something live.
Yeah, you know what? It's better to pre-record because of that reason.
Yeah.
Hey, it shows you're human, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It shows you're human, right?
I think that it's kind of weird though, because I've never seen anything where, and I'm not kidding you guys. Look, we're still here.
Still frozen up.
Wow.
The computer will not turn off, and I don't get it. I've never seen anything like it. I think this is what it is. This is the frozen time frame. You guys will be frozen in time. The image that will last.
That's not a bad picture, man. You put that up on as our thumbnail for the.
But I can't even capture the thing because I don't know what happened.
The whole is it the whole computer or just the screen?
The whole computer's frozen.
Wow.
It's been. I can't turn it off. It won't respond. I close it, right? So turn off. I reopened it and look.
Wow.
So I had to run to the iPad, but you know what?
You know what, Chuck? Speaking of technical difficulties, how much if you put together a new trick, how much time and effort goes into that trick to make sure that it performs correctly so that you don't have technical difficulties on stage?
That's a very good point, Joe. I tell you what, if I learn something new or if I create something, it takes a few weeks to rehearse it and to get it down pat. If I can't perform a magic show and I'm about 99% sure of it, you know what? Then I'll pull a particular trick out, but I have to be close to 100%. It's not a guarantee. I mean, I've actually made mistakes. I mean, I've dropped things occasionally, and something didn't quite go right, but you don't call attention to it. You know what? The show goes on. You can't. Yeah. You can't stop. You can't.
I always wondered about that when magicians, when they're on stage, because they're doing it live in front of a live audience. Whether
Absolutely.
They're farther back. What happens when a mistake is made, because I'm guessing.
Well, look, what
if you make a mistake, that could be detrimental to a trick, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was performing a trick. It's called the disappearing from the stage, coming back outside.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. No, it does take it's a long time, like he says, man, to set up and everything. Oh my gosh.
See, that's
yes. No, is that like so like you said, you would have to not call attention to it if you drop something.
Don't call attention to it. Keep going.
Do you actually practice? Mishaps and like saying, practice dropping something, but keep going, to
absolutely. You got to keep going. You know what? My wife, she's a nurse, and she was telling me way back when she was in high school, she twirled the baton, and they told her if you drop the baton, keep acting like you're twirling it, even if you don't have it. You know what I mean? You have to continue on. That's very important. I mean, things happen. With cards and so forth. Like a card might fly out of your hand occasionally. I mean, it shouldn't. I mean, with all the years I've been doing it, but if I'm being completely honest, things happen, and I'm only a human being. I mean, so what? You just got to cover it up. You got to keep going, man.
Nobody's perfect, and if you do a trick, 1,000 times, the more you do it, the more the odds are is that mistakes gonna happen. So I always thought, man, these magicians, they put all this time in it, and if mistakes made, like me, I would pucker up and be like, what the heck happened? But you in reality, you would have to keep going and move their attention somewhere else and just, keep moving on. That's
The only thing you wouldn't be able to recover from is if you blatantly tripped and fell. Or I mean, if you would, that would be bad.
Well, I mean, I won't. This is the deal. I've never had technical difficulty. My friend Joe here always has technical difficulties.
It's always my fault. They come from me, the technical difficulties.
Reason, I mean, I've never seen a computer freeze. It's a Chromebook, but it's a $900 Chromebook. It's not a cheap. It's it's got 8 gigs of RAM. Why did it do that? I have no idea. It's still frozen. I have no idea what's happening to it, but it made me scared because I can lose a lot of information on that computer.
Well, we got about 4 minutes here, so let's wrap up.
Hello?
What are your thoughts? What final words of wisdom do you have out there for people listening or viewing?
Now you froze, Joe.
He was freezing. I didn't quite hear that, Joe. What did you say?
What are your final thoughts? What final words of wisdom do you have for people out there, listening or viewing us?
Sure. The only thing I can tell you, is whatever field you choose, just do it good. Do it to the best of your ability. I don't care if you're a carpenter. I don't care if you're, my son's an electrician. I mean, whatever you do it the best you can. Be well versed in it. Give it a best shot. Treat people fair. Be honest. You know what? And that's basically the best you can do.
Awesome, Eddie. What do you got for us?
Well, it's kind of interesting because what I'm seeing, what happened today, and the technical difficulty and everything, it's making me wonder if live streaming is even worth it.
It's a tough business,
insane, man. I mean, we're trying to do a good show here. We go out of our way, and then all of a sudden, what I think is happening, so many people are live streaming, especially at night on the internet. Yeah. That's what's causing the freeze up. Because whatever it was the internet, and I have 1 gig up and down. So
I know we discussed, and we'll have to talk about it further about maybe just strictly going to audio and just doing the podcast, and maybe keeping the YouTube for special events or special interviews where the visual aspect of it might be a little bit more valuable. So everybody out there, stay tuned, and we'll have more information. And definitely everyone out there, go to houseoftheunusual.com. It's our main website. Tons of stuff to do on there. Eddie has a bunch of videos showing his collection, showing some different, vintage and newer items. There's also a forum on there that's free to join. Anybody could join it. Go on there, meet some like-minded people, so if you have questions about, magic, put them on there. There are some people that are magicians, in the forum, or that might be looking to join. So you might be the person that, influences somebody else to join. So go on there. There's always some good discussions going on. We got a nice blog, and then there's a link to the podcast on there. And there's also a link to the eBay store on there, where you'll find a lot of these, novelty items that Eddie's still selling. And definitely check us out. If you're listening to us, check us out on YouTube at House of the Unusual. We have a lot of great videos on there. You can see all of our faces, every week from the ones we've been doing. And, we're on Instagram, House of the Unusual, and Facebook as well. So, check us out on there. Definitely support us. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, give us a like, leave a cool comment or something, and tell us something. And definitely, if there's something you want us to discuss or talk about, go to the forum on houseoftheunusual.com and put on there what you would like to hear. If you want to see more of this guy right here, of Chuck, if you want him on, more, let us know, and definitely get him on, because there's always more to talk about. And we definitely enjoy doing this stuff and talking about it and digging deeper into these subjects. So that's all I've got for everybody out there.
Yeah, and what I'm going to say is, if we have, because of what's happening with the internet and so overcrowding that's causing all these technicalities, you can still hear us on Anchor and 7 platforms. And we will concentrate more on that than the actual live ones. So we might, like you said, Joe, we might actually stop this, because it's happening every week almost to us.
Yeah. So whatever your favorite podcast platform is, we're on it: iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, so check us out on there. So Eddie, Chuck, thank you for joining us. Everybody out there, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Hold on a second. We're going to do the closing there. And bye, guys.
Okay, thanks,
See you later.
guys. Okay, bye-bye.
There we go.